Welcome to Peaceful Zen Talks. Today we have Wendy Rusnak, and she is the CEO of Light and Green. Welcome, Wendy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I just started this position 2 months ago, so it's been a really nice transition from where I was previously at, which was also somewhat in the same realm.
Right.
So it's been quite a journey in my career. I actually just got a question the other day. Someone asked me how I went about my career journey. I said there's not even a formula for it, and it's really hard to describe all the different career paths taken in order for me to end up here. But I think, one of the things that I give people advice on is to not be afraid to take on a new challenge and to never close an open door, because even thinking about where I came from, thinking about my background in the luxury retail world, and then that leading to where I'm at today, no one would have ever thought the two would have correlated. Even though there is overlap in skill set, it still seems like the absolute complete opposite industries. So, and that was all because I had particular leaders in my life that scouted me out or took a chance on me and believed in me more than I believed in myself half the time.
Yeah.
And that led me to where I'm at today.
That's incredible. It's so interesting. Sometimes we are so focused on maybe one career path, and the next thing you know, something else falls onto our lap, and then you take on that opportunity. But I do believe that every path in our life is really shaping us at that given moment for something even better and better and better. So as you mentioned, when one door opens, then you have to be able to take that opportunity and to be able to really learn from it and grow from it. And see it as a positive influence in your life, so that you can take that next step. So that's really, really inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. Aside from work life, I would love to dive a little bit into relationships and friendships in your life right now. Like, are you still close with everyone that you were close with, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one of my highlights this year was having my wedding happen in January.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I pretty much, I've had the same 3 best friends for the last 10 years. So that's been rewarding. I would say 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Some of them 15 years now. And that was something that was really special and intimate, because I wanted to have a really small, peaceful beach wedding with just the closest people in my life. And it's rewarding to look back on and to think, okay, I finally made it. I didn't think, if someone asked me a year ago if I'd get married, I would have definitely said no.
Yeah.
So it's so funny how life choices change, how individually you evolve and mature. And, the reality is, even with that subject coming up, I think to myself, who I am now is probably not the person I'm going to be in 10 years. So
definitely. Yeah. No, completely agree. And it's really interesting that you mentioned the small beach wedding with close friends. I think it's important to have close people in your life rather than throwing a wedding to just for the show. And I think culturally, like especially Indian weddings as well, like I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's all these weddings with like 200, 300 people. And I hope that I can have a small wedding like that as well, but it probably is not going to be possible. But it's nice to have loved ones and people who you genuinely care about, or people who genuinely care about you, be present for your big day, rather than this whole crowd of people that you don't even know.
I got a message actually yesterday from a friend, and she's getting married soon, and she texted me and she said, I just can't wait for the day to be over with, because she's stressing out. And I would say the only sad part about weddings sometimes is the cultural pressures that arise from family members at times. The reality is it's a sacred day for you and the person you're getting married with.
Absolutely.
So you're doing it for each other and you're not doing it for your mom or your dad. So I think sometimes people forget that. I'm sure there were people that were bummed that they, weren't a part of the day, but the reality is we weren't getting married for 500 people. We were getting married for and making commitments and vows to each other. So I think that would be the one piece of advice
that's really good advice
that I would give out, because when I got the message, I just told her, I said, you're going to love the day and you're going to enjoy the day, because that is going to be your day. That's going to be your special day. So, I see a lot of people go through so much stress when it comes to weddings. And I'm not going to say that my fair share of things didn't come up last minute that shocked me, but and it happens, but the reality too is don't forget what the purpose of that day is for.
Definitely. No, that's absolutely amazing advice for everyone who is looking to get married or, in general. I think it's about each other versus about everyone around you. And yes, your loved ones are there and you want them to be a part of it. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned, taking vows, it's such a beautiful thing. So you don't have to be stressed that day. It should be a calming day where you're enjoying the moment and you're going to enjoy taking that next big step to your future life.
I agree. I definitely agree. For Jason and I, my husband now, we actually, so it was always my dream, my life dream, to have a beach wedding. I've wanted that.
You sound like me.
I've always wanted a beach wedding.
Yeah.
If anyone knows anything about me, I love surfing.
Yeah.
So anything on the ocean, anything on the sand. I mean, that was my ultimate dream.
Right.
And Jamaica actually had a special significance for me.
Interesting.
I had a client, she's very special, and she actually flew me out to Jamaica about 4 or 5 years ago now as a gift.
Wow.
And
that's a nice gift.
And if you want to talk about getting real, that's beyond a nice gift.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about getting real here, and having some very transparent conversations, my mom, at the time, I'm trying to remember, I think I was 28 years old. My mom, she was opposed to it because she said, I don't know this client.
Right.
And that shows you what background, that shows you what kind of background I come from.
Totally.
So my mom said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And then I'm here trying to have a conversation with my family and putting up a fight about this.
Right.
And now she's dragging my brother into the conversation, which my brother is, I have the utmost respect for. He's like second man of the house ever since my dad died when I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
So I look up to my little brother as an older brother. And at this point now things are getting tense. So I call my client and I let her know, my mom won't let me go because she doesn't know you well. And she said, I want to talk to your mom.
Wow.
And she said, she called me back and she said, I would do the exact same thing because I have a daughter and I'm a mother.
Yeah.
So
very
I think your mom needs to get to know me. So I want to fly your mom out, which is nuts. So now I go as a 28-year-old with a chaperone to Jamaica.
Wow.
And it was very comforting. This is one of the most remarkable clients I've ever had in my life, because I remember thinking for maybe the large majority of other 28-year-olds, they'd be very embarrassed by the situation. But she made me value that so deeply and value the fact that I have family that loves and cares about my safety.
Yeah.
Whereas, other people would judge that. I can't change the mom that I was I was born
Yeah.
to.
No, totally. And I think that's I admire that client. I admire that client for being able to say, hey, you know what? I understand. And she probably ended up having more respect for you and your family.
She did.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she reminds me of that all the time, you know? And so I had one of the greatest trips with my mom because that was our first relaxing vacation.
That's great.
My family and I had always traveled, but we've never been to a tropical paradise where we've just laid out.
Yeah.
You know, our style of traveling is going to Europe and walking through the streets of Europe till 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Since I was a kid, my mom loved exploring Prague and cities, you know, wherever we went, that was our style of traveling. And then waking up at 7 a.m., hitting museums, you know, it was all about culture.
Right.
So
this was a different experience, being able to just lay out sunshine and the ocean.
Completely different. And not only that, we're all, you know, I'm realizing this right now as I'm talking to you for the first time. It was beautiful because we're also in a different phase in life. My mom's older, you know, I'm 28 years old, so we're not little kids. So we're at this calming period, this more mature period of our life where we for the first time experience something and we're able to have a deep gratitude and value for an experience that, you know, I guess most American families do, but we've just, as a family, never sat on the beach. And
I think actually a lot of people need to understand that, like, our parents are getting older and we need to be grateful and we need to cherish these moments and spend time with them. And as you're talking, I'm also realizing how cool would it be to go on a trip just with my mom? And I don't even remember the last time I did that. I do see my parents on a weekly basis. I try to put in the effort and you know, really spend time with them, whether it's through watching Indian TV show, listening to some music or whatever it might be. And that's also bonding time. But then to be able to really explore and to go into another country, that is such an incredible experience that not everyone can experience, to be honest.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And I encourage you to go on a trip with your mom because it's life-changing, especially at this age. Even if they're, you know, a little more protective and stricter. You know, as I get older, I value my mom in a deeper and deeper way. And you begin to realize how short life is and how very little time you do have left. We went on this trip. It was a dream, and I just remember being on the beach and watching a wedding while I was there happen on the beach and thinking, man, I wish I had a wedding like that.
You manifested it.
Such a dream. I know. Such a dream wedding. And never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that years later I would have a wedding on that beach where my client took me. It was the same.
That gives me the chills.
The same resort where she took me. It was my dream to have a wedding there at that resort. So, and I have a dream husband. That's only the tip of the iceberg to make a comment like that because I don't think people understand the level of sacrifice and who he really is. So right before the wedding, so I had 2 car accidents within a year, which was nuts.
Wow.
One of them was a hard hit by a semi-truck.
I'm so sorry.
It left definitely some damage to my C3, C4, L5, L6. I mean, I was in so much pain and out of work. I couldn't walk. I was on painkillers. I was in the hospital. And this man took off so many days of work just to take care of me and just to be there alongside me. I smelled bad. I couldn't shower, you know. I was in a brace. He was there during physical therapy, during OT. I mean, that was a level of sacrifice that I've never in my entire life experienced from any man
That
in my
gives
entire
me the
life.
chills, yeah.
And the crazy part about that was while we were friends. And I was hard on him. I was really, really hard on him. I wasn't trusting, and I was skeptical.
Of course, yeah.
I was assuming that he only wanted something from me. And months later, he's still there.
Yeah.
The crazier part is the first day that I could really walk and get out of the house was Valentine's Day. So this is prior to the wedding, the year before.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I think we need to get you some food. And by then, like I said, we were still friends. So we go out on Valentine's Day, and all of a sudden we're at this airport. And I'm thinking, what are we doing at the airport? So he said, just come in. I need to show you something.
Yeah.
So we go into this room that's decked out, balloons,
Aww.
champagne, everything you can imagine. And this guy comes out and he says, welcome to your first flight lesson. And I'm thinking, this guy is trying to kill me. Like, this guy is nuts. Like, why am I...
I randomly just thought about our experience on the mini plane.
I know. And you know the drop you get and the zero gravity
I've never
and
been
all.
on a mini plane after that.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking to myself, all right. And that's funny because it did bring back that memory.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I've been on a mini plane before several times. We're fine.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, yeah, your first flight lesson is in a helicopter. And I'm thinking, like, this guy's crazy.
Right.
He's nuts. So we get in the helicopter. It's a 1-hour flight lesson. I remember looking at the co-pilot and asking him, well, who's flying this? And he said, you are. You're learning how to fly today. And so I said, okay, where are the parachutes? And he was like, parachute? He was like, this helicopter's not going down. And I was like, what about Kobe? And he was like, we don't talk about that. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not the way to start Valentine's Day. And that day he had asked me out officially.
Aww.
The crazier part to the story is about a week later, he sends me, I think it was a week or it was a week and a half later, he sends me this invite that actually comes from his work. He works in a location I can't disclose.
Yeah.
But part of his background was doing also presidential security with alongside Secret Service. And he sends me this invite that comes in from the organization, and all of a sudden it says there's this black tie dinner that's a gala event, and it's happening in July.
Okay.
And so he's prepping me about meeting his famous boss and how this is a big business event and there's only an excluded amount of people that are invited. It's exclusive to, I think, 16 of us.
Right.
And he's prepping me for it from February all the way to July.
Okay.
So I'm nervous, and I'm, all through those months, I'm asking him questions. I'm getting emails leading up to this event about how there's a dress code, another email about if I have food allergies, all this stuff.
Right.
We finally get to the date. He picks me up. I'm in this long white gown that I decided to wear. And a few months after him asking me out, turns out it wasn't a dinner, and he proposed.
Yeah.
With a flash mob. So
I remember seeing that video.
So I was like, this guy's crazy. But what was really neat was that my heart froze. I was in so much shock because there were just hundreds of people all around.
Yeah.
There's a flash mob. I'm not even processing everything. When the flash mob even started,
Right.
I'm pointing, going, "Oh, look how funny! Look at these."
So I have a question. Did you end up telling him that you wanted something like this, or was because
I've always wanted a public proposal.
that's what. Okay.
I've always wanted a public.
So he knew that.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was always my dream to have a public proposal.
Okay.
And it was my dream to have a public proposal for the sake of the idea that are you ashamed of me or are you not?
Oh,
you know,
I didn't even think about that. That's really interesting.
It's so weird. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like I am proud to tell the world that I want to make this move and capture this girl's heart for the rest of her life, and that she's taken. And it's a weird thing, you know. Different
That's
strokes,
not a weird thing.
Different strokes for different folks. Some people love like the intimate one-on-one.
Right.
For me, it's just like I wanted my family there. I want my friends to be a witness of the event.
Yeah.
You know, that was important to me, you know?
Definitely. I see.
Did I think it was going to be as big as it was? No. But did I think there was also going to be a flash mob involved in it? No. But it was amazing. It was unbelievable. But I was in shock. And I was stunned because I think I was sweating because I was trying to rehearse in my head questions that I should be asking this boss that I thought I was going to meet. And knowing that, you know, he's got his particular likes and this and that, and he's a hard to get to man.
So the whole dress code thing, I'm curious about that. So through the emails, they had mentioned make sure you wear a white gown.
No, it was a gala.
Oh, it was a gala.
Yeah, black tie.
Black tie. So the dress that you wore was a white dress, though, you're saying?
It was a white dress because, believe it or not, so this was even funnier. That proposal ended up going viral on TikTok.
Yeah, I remember.
I was dying of laughter at all the comments that it wasn't, not every comment, but of the different people that were commenting, she's wearing a wedding dress she knew because it's white. And if anyone knew me that year, I had to post a video of my closet stating that every piece in my closet was white.
I can see that. I've known you for a while and you wear a lot of white.
In love with wearing white.
Yeah.
And so slowly, I think this is the first year that my style is starting to add a little color. We're starting to add a little color to the closet. But
I remember a lot of white.
It just so happened that, you know, and so that was even more ridiculous that I'm in this like white gown and he's proposing in his tux. So then people are asking us, well, did you guys just get married? Like, you know, and I'm like, no, this is all.
You're like, so it was a complete surprise to you.
I was just telling people this is a surprise, and so it was unbelievable. I mean, that was such a highlight, and that's
a beautiful, beautiful proposal, and I think surprises are fun. I think it's incredible that he was able to really pull that off for several months.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
So you guys have been together for 2 years, correct?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So do you have any advice for our listeners, or, you know, whether people are in a relationship or not, we can all learn from each other. Do you have any advice in regards to what you've learned over the last 2 years, especially being in a committed, serious marriage?
Yeah. You know, for me, one of the things that I think people forget is each other comes first. You guys are a team. And, you know, I'm not perfect. And I'm thankful to a lot of accountability, partners in my life, people that have just great friends and mentors that have kept me accountable, because looking back on everything, I really think to myself, it's very easy to get influenced by external sources. It's very easy to get influenced by even sometimes a parent's opinion.
Of course.
And a parent's opinion on how you need to change the other person. But the reality is that I married him for who he is. And there's this level of protection that you're to have for your family. And that protection, I think, is also combined with respect. I respect him so deeply that when it comes to me and him, we're a united front.
Wow.
And that's important. That's really, really, really important, because I think to myself, if we can't practice that now, how would we be able to practice that when we have kids in the future? And learning how to overcome, I love this older couple that was so sweet and just said little things like, don't go to bed angry. So we don't go to bed and not talk things out, and I'm very, very, very grateful that one of the advices I was also given before marriage was to make sure we have a few fights before we get married, which we did. We had
few. That's it. Wendy?
Yeah, I know. I can't even say that we had that many. I could only count 3 legit fights we had before I got married, and they were all my fault. They were. It was because I assumed, and I assumed the worst, and that was happens. Me and my insecurities and not trusting. I literally jumped to extreme conclusions. And sometimes the past,
of course,
past relationships can have some effect on that, where but back to like the greatest counselors that we had, like did premarital counseling before we even got married, to make sure that we really knew what we were getting into, and that we were on the same page on some major life topics that are important to be equally yoked in. So it was really neat, because looking back on that, there was one time where they held me accountable and they said, do not hold him to your previous relationships.
Yes.
He's a different guy. And I said, I know, but my family's saying this and that. And they said, this is about you. This is your relationship.
Totally.
He's not marrying your mom.
And I think it's challenging, especially because you love your family so much, and
they
do care about you. They want the best for you.
I do.
So how do we sometimes
separate
the two? And I think that was really challenging for me too, because your parents have your own opinions. Your parents really genuinely want the best for you. And they're going to have a lot of questions, and they're going to, as soon as you are dating this person or trying to marry this person or whatever it might be, there are lots of questions that my father had. There were lots of questions that my mom had. And
agree.
I think it's challenge. You have to really, as you mentioned, it's about you two. And once you know yourself, then you're going to choose a good partner too. And again, there are situations where sometimes we do make mistakes, where we haven't done the work, or someone can be extremely deceiving. However, once we dig deep and figure out who we are and what we truly want, like the non-negotiable versus the things that we really want from a partner, then we're going to attract the right person in our life too. And you have to be solid with that decision.
Agree.
And not let, as you mentioned, external factors get in the way. Agree.
And I've genuinely never had more peace. I was, I'll tell you, I was even nervous all the way up to my wedding day, because I remember thinking to myself, what if this is all just like a fairy tale?
Right.
Like what if this is all
too good to be
true? And what if I wake up from this and realize it was just a dream?
Right.
And I still had those doubts in my mind, but it was unbelievable to just see his consistency. That was the key word. He never faltered in being consistent, ever. And it's unbelievable. I mean,
For the people listening, consistency in a relationship is key. If a guy or a male or female, if they're constantly there for you, if they are determined through ups and downs, I think that's when you know this person would make a wonderful partner.
yeah. I remember reading this quote one day that says, you know more about a man by what other people say about him than what he says about himself.
Wow.
And you know what's really impressive? So while we were friends, it's so funny. I had so many people to this day. I mean, I don't talk about this too often because what captured me is his heart.
Yeah.
And for me, it's never been a physical thing.
Wow.
Where, I'm captivated by someone's looks first. I mean, for me, it's truly about the heart.
Yeah.
So I remember for months, at one point I was even trying to set him up with someone I knew. Because for months, people were like, this guy's just so good looking. Like, are you blind? And I'm just thinking, like, I don't know what people see. Like, I just didn't see it, which was so funny. But here's the moment for the first time in our friendship that I thought, like, whoa, he sparked a little interest in me.
Would love to know that.
We were actually at a restaurant, and his ex's family was sitting, her entire family,
Wow.
minus her, was sitting at a table way off in the corner.
Okay.
Now, they have this funny tradition that they would, apparently, when they would go out to dinner, they would always claim it was somebody's birthday and get them a birthday cake. So we sit down.
I do that every weekend. I'm kidding.
Right? I know. I wish I had friends that claimed it was my birthday every time I went out. I'm just kidding.
It's the best.
I know. We'd get cake every day. No, I'm just kidding. It's probably a good thing, actually, for me. So the funny thing was, we sit down and we're with our own group. We're like with 15 friends.
Right.
And out of nowhere, this cake comes out, candles. We're at a Mexican restaurant, so this massive sombrero comes out, and they just plop it on his head, and they're all singing him these like Spanish birthday songs.
Right.
And he looks at everyone in the table, and he's pointing at everyone. You did this. Who did this? And everyone is in shock. Everyone's like, I don't know. We didn't, and they're like, it's too soon. We didn't even get our food, and you got a birthday cake. What's going on? And all of a sudden, he looks over and sees this family dying of laughter, pointing. And I'm looking at them, and he looks at me and he goes, oh my goodness, that's my ex's family. And he said, should I go say hi? And I said, well, are you in bad terms with them?
Yeah.
And he said, no. He said, we have a great relationship. I said, well, then absolutely go say hi. And they were all leaving, which is why they sent over the birthday cake while we had just sat down. And they came over, and the way they held his face and just embraced him, every single one of them, like kissing him on the forehead, just hugging him, telling us this man is just got a heart of gold, saying the most beautiful things about him. I thought, this guy is something else. That he left that impression on a family.
That gives me the chills. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. And that was the first moment there were these little sparks in me. But I still kept that scenario in my back pocket, and I thought, I'm just going to observe for a while.
Right.
And
I think that that's also very important. I think a lot of times we dive into situations not knowing the person that well. Yeah. Whether that person's trustworthy, loyalty, is it just all a facade? Like, is he actually who he is, or at least who he's showing me? Right. Especially as you mentioned, being hurt, like, in the past, or insecurities, or whatever it might be. Right. It's really important to have that clarity. And also, it might sound, it's challenging because it sounds like you're giving the other person a difficult time. However, it's also very important to I don't think there's anything wrong with having just being able to observe and really figuring out like, okay, who is this person?
Yeah.
The truth matters.
Which is crazy because I've heard the extreme of the two, where I've literally met a couple that at one point in my life, I went to the Philippines to teach, and I met this couple that opened their home to me, and we're married for 45 years, and he proposed to her on the third date. And I'm just thinking, this is nuts. And then they got married 2 weeks later. And it's just, you know, that funny quote that I said earlier, different strokes for different folks. You know, it just
there's no right way. But I do have empathy for whatever you have been through, and then being able to trust again and love again.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, one thing that I'll say is that I could have, it wasn't easy because our past really does mold a lot of decision making that we make in our future, right? And it's a piece of who we are. I also think to myself, our past develops wisdom in us that we didn't have prior to those experiences. So there's nothing that I went through that I regret. Nothing at all. I'm very, very, very grateful for everything that I've been through.
As you should be, yeah.
Everything was a learning lesson. And there's things that I look back on that I think to myself like, wow, now being in this situation, or now having this mindset, or now growing further, I could have done this better.
Totally.
Or this situation, I reacted so irrationally, or I reacted so immaturely. So, you know, all of that helped me really, really, really value who I'm with today.
You wouldn't have appreciated him 3 years ago, right?
No.
So you wouldn't have.
No, not at all.
Timing is everything.
No, that's one of the most accurate things to even mention, because 4 years, I'm grateful I didn't meet him 6 years ago. Because genuinely, I wonder if we would be together because of my character and who I was back then. And that's not even that long ago. So I'm not gonna paint myself out to act like I'm this just changed amazing woman, because the reality is only the long journey. Only the long term shows that.
Of course.
And so, but it's you know where your weaknesses are, and sometimes it takes tough life experiences to expose those weaknesses. And you have to be very self-aware every single morning when you wake up. Okay, this is a trigger, or these are my faults and these are my weaknesses. So take a deep breath. How am I going to react to?
And it's not easy.
React in this situation. It's not. It's a conscious, every single day effort. Every single day. And you know, there's tough things that I went through, like as a kid, like losing my dad at the age of 9. To this day, like I don't talk about that subject too easily without breaking down.
Of course.
And some people think that, well, you're 33, you know, you should be over it. But it's a very tough conversation.
We still go through a lot of experiences that we went through. Whatever we're going through at the moment reminds us of our childhood as well. And at the same time, our childhood definitely affects our adulthood life, right?
Agree.
So that's not something that can completely fade. It's a lot of growth and a lot of deep work to realize, okay, you know what, have I healed from that? Yeah, I agree. But you know what? It's so interesting how that overlaps with every facet of your life. So the growth in my marriage brings growth in my relationship with my brother, brings growth in me as a manager leading a company. Right.
All of that. I even think the same exact subject that I'm bringing up now, the leader I was 10 years ago, I'm like, good Lord, poor, God bless those team members. Because I was so immature then too. I was so new in my career. And
it takes a big person. It takes a really incredible human being to be able to expose that about themselves and say that, you know what, like I wouldn't have been so great 10 years ago and I was very immature. Not a lot of people would even say that.
No, I was crazy. I remember like my first year of management, I remember thinking, just being so frustrated and thinking like, why don't they just get it? And being frustrated with team members and thinking like, you know, they not working as hard as I am. And why aren't they helping me?
Right.
But the interesting thing is that they're, you know, 10 years later down the road, now putting yourself in their position, it's wow, you know, what kind of environment are you creating? What kind of culture are you creating? Are you someone you yourself want to even be around all day long? Because that's what you spend more time with your team members than you do with your family.
Totally.
I spend more hours at work than I do with any of my family members.
Yeah.
So how am I cultivating? How am I motivating them? How am I inspiring them every day? So, and the best part about it all, when you have a great team, is they end up inspiring and motivating you every single day. So and that's what wakes me up in the morning. That's what challenges me.
Absolutely.
I work alongside some of the greatest people, and I'm married to the greatest husband. So it's okay, how do I create a loving household? How do I create a home that he wants to come to? How do I, you know, cultivate my marriage?
Yeah.
All of that runs parallel to each other.
Definitely.
So
it does. Yeah.
It's really neat. One of the counselors that I had a few years ago, I remember thinking, this was during those Jamaica years especially, gosh, my mom is so strict. Oh my goodness, she just doesn't trust me because she's so overprotective. She just doesn't let me fly a little and be a free bird. And we were butting heads at the time. And it was so neat because I remember her telling me, if you can't get that relationship right, it's going to seep into every other aspect of your life.
Wow.
And you want to work on that. Otherwise, it's going to seep into your team at work. It's going to seep into your marriage. And it's so neat because the level of like the depth of love, I've always adored my mom. I always had. But now there's less butting heads than there was 6 years ago. And the level of just empathy and servanthood that I have for my mom today is very different than what our relationship looked like 6 years ago.
That's because you worked on yourself and you have the awareness and you're more compassionate towards everyone.
And I used to think, she's the problem.
Of course.
She needs to change. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I'm the problem. Like, I need to change. And so
whenever we're blaming, we need to first look at ourselves, and then we have to realize, okay, this is where I need to do the work because I'm getting triggered, I'm getting hurt, I'm getting angry now because of my dad making this comment or whatever it might be. And yes, parents are not perfect either. And we need to recognize that as well. However, when something is bothering us, then we need to first figure it out with ourselves. Like, why are we reacting in a certain way?
Yeah.
If we're getting triggered, that's not their fault. They're still going to be who they are. They're going to say what they want to say.
Yeah.
But what can we do? Because reaction is the main thing.
No, you're right. You're right. And, you know, I just look at her today and I realized how much I took her for granted at times. She's one of the smartest and wisest women in my life.
Of course.
And overall that I've ever met.
Yeah.
And I, you know, it's just things that you take for granted, and then you pay for it with you know, life events where there's times where you realize like, wow, my mom was right.
Yeah.
There's times where you realize like she knew what she was saying and what she said came true because I didn't listen.
Right.
And
it's okay. I think like sometimes, unfortunately we don't listen when we're young. We don't want to feed into what they're saying because we're that rebellious child or whatever it might be. And that's because that's the path that we chose, and we need to make mistakes in order to learn. And sometimes we need to fall flat on our face. Our parents are there to protect us, and they will guide us. And yes, take the guidance whenever you can. Absolutely. The wisdom and the experience that they have is far beyond whatever we can even think of, especially when we're a lot younger.
Agree.
But at the same time, I think sometimes the protection is what causes the issue because we're like, no, you don't need to protect us. We're going to make our own decisions. Yeah. And they're like, no, we already know how this is going to turn out. Yeah. So don't get into this friendship. Don't get into this situation.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And you learn, the reality is life teaches you the tough way. Life teaches you the hard way. Yeah. But I'm very, today, I have a different admiration for my mom, a different love and respect. I mean, she's remarkable.
Wow. I love hearing that.
She's unbelievable. She, did her own root canal with like 12 different mirrors, I think it was.
Oh my goodness.
Nuts.
Never heard that before.
No, she won the Hall of Fame in her country for that, in her university. I mean, she's brilliant. She's really brilliant. And
well, if your mom's watching and listening, shout out.
I know. I know. And I'm so I'm very grateful for her. Yeah. And I brought that up because getting and repairing and working on some of my temper issues I had in that relationship, oh my goodness, it did wonders to prepare me for where I'm at today and to prepare me for a marriage.
Temper never ends well. I feel like, that's where reaction to everything in life is so important. And the only person that we're really hurting when we're angry is ourselves. Yeah. So that's where, our blood pressure increases, our mood, life, anything, like it affects us so deeply. So why are we doing that to ourselves? Why are we stressing ourselves out, I
agree. Yeah. I agree. And, she sacrificed a lot. We didn't have family in this country. Both my parents immigrated over here. So, I know a piece of that struggle was the closeness I had to my dad and how different both of them were. So, but then as I got older, I realized how similar I actually am to my mom. Yeah. And her reminder of it's just the three of us in this country. Like we have to look out for each other. Yeah. So we went through our pain, our sorrows, our struggles, our victories all together. Yeah. And now we're like a cord of three strands that can't be broken. But, I just think to myself, what a beautiful picture, because I'm very thankful that her and my dad really depicted what a healthy marriage looks like. They presented a united front in front of my brother and I. They really looked out for each other. They really protected each other.
That's very important.
That was such an example to everything I was to carry into, my relationship, my marriage, and I couldn't be more grateful for that example today. And it all ties in together. Wow. So
it's incredible, your journey. It's beautiful, and knowing that, you're so grateful for everything in your life. Yeah. And I think it's really important to be as grateful as you are. And I think waking up every single day and recognizing what we have, because we might not have it tomorrow. Yeah. I think it's huge to recognize that. And you gave this was incredible, because your entire life story was so beautiful. I guess now some last few words for people, any advice, like one major advice that you would have for everyone listening would be great.
Yeah. So
I know there's a lot, but one.
It's so funny because there's a life quote that I live by and that I've impressioned on my team so much. I've had this on framed, I've had this in my office. It's a Mark Twain quote, and the quote is, "They didn't know it was impossible, so they did it." And I really, really love that quote, and that's something I lead the teams with.
Wow.
When it comes to achieving goals, setting your mind to things. There were a lot of things that I even claimed were impossible. Things like, I will never get married. That's impossible.
Right.
Like, I, will never get this job. I will never, oh my goodness, my mom and I will just never have a great relationship, and I think that's a quote to lead this conversation with, but also it shows a sign of maturity to get rid of absolutes. And that reminder that I hear my mom's voice in my head of never say never.
Yeah.
Because you are limiting yourself. And when I think of my life story and all of the struggles that came my way, I can attribute overcoming those obstacles to some great giants in my life that have allowed me to overcome any objections that I threw out. So, and I actually posted this quote too. I've only seen farther by standing on the shoulder of giants. And those giants are my husband, my mom, my brother, and some of the greatest leaders that I've ever had in business. Some of the greatest accountability partners and mentors and counselors that were pivotal in counseling me before I even got married, guiding me in the right direction. I mean, all of those things, it's just never say never, don't limit yourself. And because sometimes you're your own greatest enemy.
That was well said. I'm going to applaud you for that one, because I'm thinking to myself as you were mentioning all this, like, I'm like, we are our greatest enemy at times and have a negative mindset when it comes to certain things. When we speak highly to ourselves about ourselves, that, you know what, this is challenging, but I'm going to overcome this. This is a challenging task that I'm working on, but I will finish it. And there should always be your mindset should always be where you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's important to recognize that, understand that, and internalize it. Even on the darkest days, there are going to be moments of happiness. There will be, you'll eventually reach that once you get over that hurdle. It'll happen for you. So thank you so much,
Thank you so
Wendy.
much.
Love having you here. Woo!
I appreciate you.